It's great to be here. My name is Gar Liu, and I consider myself to be a creative coder because I've been working as an interactive developer and using Flash for the last 11 years now. And I do a lot of freelance work for ad agencies within the city, and also I've been a student at OCAD for the last 8 years. I'm still trying to chip away at my graphic design degree. And recently I just finished my thesis project on data visualization. And this is what my presentation is primarily about, is to share some of the things that I learned with you, which has basically changed the way I approach data visualization today. So one of the first eureka moments for me was when I started to realize and think of data as something that is alive, something that almost like had personality. And then this led me to understand that data is not independent, nor is it static. It's kind of like the data set that we're often given actually belongs to a wider ecosystem of other data sets. By this I mean the data sets are all linked together, and so you can actually think of it as like a photographer who focuses on a shot, and the picture that he takes is just merely a cropped image of something that is larger. And this is what I'm trying to illustrate here. It's kind of hard to see the particle effects here, but you have the particles and they're kind of representing the data and it's moving, and they're all linked together. And so, for example, this 42% here, you see, is the percentage of salmon in the market which are farmed. So this data set, which is just one data, usually you have like probably thousands of other records, but for simplicity's sake, this 42% represents a lot of things. Within this data set are actually sets of emotions, and also inside this is relationships that affect other data sets, and most importantly is a narrative within this data set. So using this example of the salmon, you can think of the data set as having those emotions. For example, maybe concern for the local industry of a dying culture, or they're losing jobs, or even concern from a global scale of the biodiversity and diminishing of the fish in the ocean. So also within this data set are relationships, and because this is farmed fish, a lot of anchovies required to feed this, and because of this, the anchovy population is slowly diminishing because of this ratio of 1 to 5, where it takes 5 pounds of anchovies to produce 1 pound of salmon. So this anchovy relationship is just one of the many. You have relationships such as economy, tourism, employment rate, so the list goes on. But the most important thing to me within this data set is the narrative, the story that's behind this data set, because the stories are what touches us on a very unique level. It gives us the feeling when we leave the experience of just the feeling of the story that was left with us, which resonates far greater than static numbers such as 42%. So this is just an example, the diagram that illustrates what I just said. So you have stories, relationships, and emotions. And all these layers are then whittled down to just a simple data set or a number. And so as our job as data visualization artists, it's to try our best to recognize and then unfold these stories, show these relationships, and show these emotions through the use of design theory. And these techniques can be seen in interaction, typography, juxtaposition, color, and just the list goes on for the techniques. So after I realized that this perspective of data, it really opened my eyes to how data can be represented, which can be far greater than just pie charts or bar charts and stuff like that. This is when I really started to have fun and actually just really experiment with data. And so when creating the data visualizations, I always try to offer some kind of engagement and some kind of insight. But the tricky part that I found is trying to find where in the spectrum will this application be, depending on what the audience is and the content. So this is really, it sounds like a simple goal to achieve, like offer engagement and insight, but the tricky part is to find where it is. So if you're going to communicate to the mass audience, what I found useful is to probably create something on the engagement level, something that's very highly engaging. And the insight, you'd probably want to just say one or two things, but do it really well, and not flood the user with too much information. And I mean, I can't stress the importance of engagement, because even the most interesting message is pretty much useless and lost if you can't compel the user to actually read your message. And so on the flip side of this, if you're going to create something for perhaps somebody who's really professional, a very special group of people, then you know that they have certain lingo, jargon that they're already familiar with. So you can offer an application that offers far greater insight, level of depth, and just a lot more information. And so I'm going to just show you some examples of what I just mentioned here. So I want to use the example of Google Analytics, which is basically an app or a tool that shows the statistics and user behavior of a particular website. Now this is pretty daunting and pretty specific, so if I was to show this to like my mom, she would probably just look at it for a while and just kind of go on her way and not really get anything out of it, because it requires a particular language and like bounce rates and like exits and stuff like that people are probably not familiar with. But if I were to show her something like this, which illustrates the way people use Facebook on a global scale, this image is very striking, very beautiful, and it touches us and we want to actually engage in it, want to look at it. And then through this, it's kind of like a seamless way of obtaining information. You can just tell by just like looking at this, the white parts are just really heavy in North America, big pockets in South America. So this is not really like the global village that we have, because you have Africa here, which is completely almost isolated through internet or the use of Facebook. So I like this. I like the balance and the balance between the engagement and insight. And so with this, I want to show you some projects that I created for my thesis project. This one is basically visualizing nutrition. And so I just started the application off, and I want to show you a visualization of a nutrition I selected, which is calcium. It has over 3,000 food items. Each food item has 150 nutrients in it. So it's a very complex data set that I tried to just kind of simplify. And so what you can see from this is from the food groups, there's a lot of calcium. There's calcium in just about every food item, and they don't really range from much. And so the length of each bar here indicates a particular one of the 3,000 foods. And it also has direct daily recommended intake. So it says for this particular item, wheat has about 2,000 milligrams, and daily recommended is about 800. So this is a quick way of learning about nutrition. So there's two views of looking at this. You can view it from kind of like a word map. So the bigger items represent very popular nutrition, very common ones. So let's just pick, for example, sodium. So this is actually counted from my phone. It's probably really slow. Can we call time out? Anyways, doesn't really. I'll jump to another one. Okay, so this one is another application I did, which visualizes the way Toronto spends its money I find this interesting because the way somebody spends the money, whether it's an organization... Is that it?
Are you for real?
I told you he was going to be our guinea pig.
Okay.
You can,
That's my
go
cue.
ahead. Yeah, that's your cue, but go ahead, finish up.
Okay, so...
That totally terrified me. I had a chicken in my garage.
So this is a visualization where you can compare from year to year. So let's say you want to see the way Toronto spent its money from 2009 compared to 2011. You can't read it, but in 2009, $7.2 billion was spent, and 2011 was $8.3 billion. And this is a breakdown of the program. From here, the most money spent is TTC. And by selecting this, you can see a breakdown and go into depth. TTC spent about $1.2 billion. So of the $1.2 billion, 75% of that money was spent on salaries, compared to like about 15% on equipment and stuff. So by using this application, it asked me, it got me thinking about particular questions like why is there so much money spent on the TTC compared to other programs, which is just far great. Like, for example, you have 2009. From 2009 to 2011, there was an increase of $200 million. That's more than what the Toronto Library gets just on its own. And why are there so much money spent on salaries compared to, like, why are they not investing in equipment? So these are questions I don't know the answer to, but it's interesting that it stirs up questions and hopefully stirs up debates and stuff like that. So if you can take out one thing from this presentation, that's to understand there is this delicate balance between engaging the user and providing insight to the user, and each one varies for each project. Thanks.